Get nervous up here and I sweat, and I know I don't show it a whole lot when I'm singing. I'm not well with public speaking, so forgive me. My name is Chris Clemmer. A lot of y'all know who I am. My wife is Margie. I have two wonderful boys, Josh and Jacob, or men, I should say. And I can sit up here and tell you all the sins that I've done in my life, but I don't have all night, and I know you don't either. I know you want to get Brent up here as quick as possible, so I got a couple of quick stories to tell you how I was led to God, how He pushed me more towards Him, and it's just wonderful how it happened. About 9 years ago, I had a Ford Ranger, and I was in a pretty bad car accident. I was in a bad car accident, but I walked away unscathed without a scratch. And when I say a bad car accident, the front wheels were 4 feet from touching the back wheels. That's how bad it was. And now when I say this, God had His hand on me. He didn't have His hand on me. He had His whole body wrapped around me, protecting me. And here's the thing about that. I was watching, and when this happened to me, I didn't realize what He had done for me and the blessings He was giving me, because a week to the day, whenever I thought everything just couldn't get any worse, here I was in this car accident. I was starting to worry, God, what are you doing in my life? Where are you taking it? I was starting to not care a whole lot. I had a 5-year-old at the time depending on me to be there for him, and I wasn't there, so much like I should have been. A wife that loved me unconditionally. But the blessing, my wife called me. I was working part-time at the Chattanooga Lookouts, and she said, "You'll never believe what you did." And I said, "Oh, great. What have I done?" She goes, "Oh, you did something very good. I'm pregnant." So it told me there's a reason why I'm here. Now, I have faltered, and time and time again, I'll pick myself up. God picks me up. The Word picks me up constantly. Spiritual walk, and that leads into this story. So when I get my insurance money, instead of buying a new car, I kind of go with a '96 model Jeep. I've always liked Jeeps. I'm a big Jeep fan. I get one that's pretty reasonable price. It's jacked up. All guys like good 4-wheel drives, and of course I didn't. At the time I didn't have a lot of money to keep it up that good, but I go out there one Friday morning to crank it up, and it doesn't crank. I say, well, it's got to be the battery. So I get a ride to work, and then I come home that evening, I put a new battery in it, and it doesn't start. So, it's got to be an alternator, So I go and I get an alternator, and I put the alternator in. After probably 4 hours, it seemed like forever putting that alternator in, because all the pulleys in this thing were so wound up tight that I'm sitting here fighting it by myself and attaching it and putting this belt on, and I'm thinking, there's got to be an easier way. So when I fight and I get this Jeep put together, which I think is put together, I get in that, crank it up. Nothing. It's like, God, what is going on? And this time my pride, I think to myself, my grandfather showed me pretty much what to do, the basic tuning of a car, and and it's a male pride. We think we can fix anything. That's what I was going for. So I start troubleshooting. I think, well, maybe it's a starter. So a couple days later, I get a starter. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. I lied to you. This started on a Wednesday. I get a starter on Saturday. Finally, I locate one. We go to about 4 or 5 shops, something like that, and I finally get one. And a starter on a Jeep is heavy. I mean, this thing probably weighed, it felt like it weighed 100 pounds, but it probably weighed about 30 pounds. And I'm under this thing, and I've got one hand up on it, and you got to get it on the flywheel. And not only do you have to put it together, you have to make contact so it can get a start to the battery and to the alternator and make it flow. And you've got all these little washers. So I'm under here, and I'm talking to myself. I'm like, this just didn't worth it. I just can't do it anymore. But I finally get it together after about 5 or 6 hours. And I go inside, and my wife, she says, so how's it going? It's like, it's together. I mean, that's all I can, that's all I can hope for right now. She said, well, maybe you should, really think of what got it together. And I'm walking out, I'm like, what you mean by that, So I get in the car, and I sit down, and it's the first time I really prayed, and I wasn't good at praying, but I remember how it went. I put my head down on that steering wheel, and I said, God, it's me. I know you don't hear from me enough, but I just want to let you know I've got to go to work. I've got to have this car up and running. Now, mind you, this is on a Saturday. I said, I promise you, with all my being, if you allow this Jeep to crank up, I will go to church tomorrow morning. So I hit it, nothing. So at this point, I'm like, looking around, I was like, oh, that's right. You didn't push the clutch in. So I pushed the clutch in. I said, one more time. Needless to say, I'm coming back in, and my wife said, what's wrong? How'd it go? I said, well, we need to find the boys some clothes because we're going to church in the morning. So how that got me there is I finally started going. We went regular. We went to a church in Chattanooga. I went to my father's church, and it was more of a contemporary church. And you know, we loved it. Don't get me wrong. You know, it helped me out a lot in a lot of ways. But I always still felt like I was in the shadows. I wasn't getting maybe per se what I needed. Well, actually, I know I wasn't getting what I needed, and that's my fault. I mean, that was me not allowing myself to let go, because when I was growing up, church wasn't a big, huge priority in my family. I mean, I hate to say that. One side of my family was all about it, but another side was kind of skeptical about it. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that they did it intentionally to like hurt me or anything, or misguide me or mislead me. I think it was more or less just, you know, I always used to use the excuse of, I don't need to go to church to let the Lord know I love Him. Wrong. If you're saying that, you're wrong. I'm sorry, but I mean, you've got to. It's the fellowship. It's the camaraderie. It's the love. It's people praying for you. It's people, telling you, "Hey, I'm glad you're here." It's an uplifting thing. It's spiritually. It's the word that comes out of this man's mouth. Amen. It's not just a gathering place. And I've always heard from multiple people, it's just a bunch of hypocrites. Well, then I guess I'm a hypocrite then, because I enjoy coming to church. I love the Lord, and I mean, I can't imagine where my life is now. But like I said, I still sin. I falter, and I have to ask for forgiveness. And I do daily, whether it be past things or something I've done that day. But what really got to me, we got to become praise and worship at our old church, and I got a little more involved. I thought, well, maybe this is what I need to get a little more involved and get more spiritually involved. And it kind of started like pushing me more into the spiritual side of things, and I was starting to, really connect more with God, which I thought I was, until I got a chance to go to a men's retreat. And man, it was the first time I ever told my testimony. And the weight off my shoulders, and I gave it to God. And see, this whole time I never knew that you could give it to Him. I always thought that you had to carry it around like baggage, and you had to sit there and just, take it and say, you did it, you got to live with it. No. And I think that's probably part of the reason why it was so hard for me to get close to Him, because I didn't realize that you can leave it right here, leave it with Him anywhere, just say, God, take it from me. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to do the best I can to walk with you. And He knows that. And He knows you're going to slip. I mean, that's what's great about Him. He already knows what you're going to do, It's kind of funny, too. I left this out whenever I told my wife that, or at least it's funny to me, whenever I told her we were going to go to church. I turned to her, I said, I made a promise, like God didn't know that. I kind of whispered it, and she looks at me like, I think He knows that. But, the power of such things, I got closer and closer to those men's retreat. And, it got a chance, and my dad went, and it got a chance for me to really get to be with him more. I'm sitting there one day, and I put my head down at church one day, and I said, Lord, just guide me. I need to feel you. I've got to have it. I got to know if this is the real deal. I got to know. And everybody's up and singing. I just sit, and I pray, and I say, I need your guidance. What do I need to do? Do I need to be a better husband? And I still ask myself daily, was I a better husband? Was I a good father? A lot of times you ask my kids, they're probably, no, but, because I'm strict, Dad. I mean, sometimes I'm no nonsense, but I asked myself this, and I continue to ask myself this daily. I said, what do I need to do? Do I need to get more in my devotion? Well, yes, still do. And all of a sudden, this sensation went over me, and it felt like somebody grabbed me right here. And I just freeze, and it says, you're on your way. Don't worry about it. And I think to myself, well, that's my dad, because my dad was sitting next to him. No, he's standing up. He would have to literally come back and grab me if that was what he was wanting to do. And I just knew then, I was like, okay, you got me. You've got me. I'm at your mercy. I'll do whatever it takes to keep on loving you and serving you. But like I said, I still falter. I'm not perfect. I tell my wife all the time, I'm not perfect. You didn't marry a perfect man. I told you that, right before we got married. But she still manages to love me. Amen. So, and I get, I'm coming to this church. We've been coming here about 3.5 years, about 4 years, I guess now, and we just became members, and we love it. We've not expressed how much we love it. We appreciate all of you guys, how much you told us how much you loved last night. Thank you. That means a lot to us. Because there's times when Shannon and Ralph can probably agree that we just feel like it's not connecting, and we're like, he'll get us through it, and he always seems to. But just the uplifting word from you guys, it means the world to us. Trust. It just does. And good job, Greg. You did a wonderful job of that song. But the best advice I can give to you is just, I'm hoping that maybe with my testimony, if there's somebody out there that wants the courage to step forward and say, look, I know where you're coming from. I know what you're doing. I know how you feel. I'm hoping that this maybe shows somebody that it's all right to talk to him and talk to everybody, because that's what we're here for. We're a family, But that's all I have.